All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Polk County Board of Commissioners. Today is Tuesday, October 10th. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lyle, can you hear us okay?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, we can hear you as well. First up, are there any comments for items not on the agenda today?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
So I want to make certain that we acknowledge the catastrophic situation happening in Israel today and my feelings for the people around the world that are suffering, the families that have suffered, and how much this Pledge of Allegiance means to me today more than any other day. I'm very confident that our country will step up as a solid ally with Israel. I apologize, this is very emotional. I have friends who've been affected by this, and we should all be leaning in and listening and learning from what's going on. So I wanted to make certain that we at least acknowledged it on the record today and give our sympathies and prayers to those who are fighting for their freedom in their lives.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Next up, we have approval of the minutes of October 3rd. Do I have a motion to approve?
Also move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Next up, we have Sheriff Mark Garten for a report, an update. Welcome, sir.
Morning.
Morning.
I just have just some basic numbers. We're able to start running more stats than we were last time I was here. The new CAD system is finally catching up with all the different arms that were delayed. So I was able to get some more specific information this time. In terms of corrections, this is over a 2-month period. We booked 367 total people and had an average daily population of 107 males and 107 total, with an average length of stay at 23 days. Fortunately in the jail, they are able to, no news is good news, I guess. There's a lot of just regular hard work going in, and nothing extravagant has happened either way. So in terms of the jail, they're operating full potential. We are down 2 positions in the jail. Currently have applications out, and we've already done testing, and so we're moving closer to finding those right candidates. On patrol, we responded to 2,902 calls for service that were generated, with 91 arrests and almost 500 911 calls, almost 600 traffic stops as well. So our guys and gals are out there being very productive, being busy. They're definitely not, definitely not, they don't have time on their hands to sit around and just do nothing. There's plenty of work for them to do. On the back page of page 3, or on page 3, I listed out just some of the samplings of the types of calls that they're handling on a daily basis. Anywhere from 50 domestics disturbances to 45 theft investigations and 65 welfare checks. These are ones that could be very simple, but they could also be very complex at the same time. It just depends on the circumstance. On patrol, we are down 5. Well, we're not down 5 positions, but we have 5 people that are hired in training in one form or another, just aren't solo by themselves yet. We have 2 at the police academy, 1 graduating this Friday. Another one I think is in 3 weeks. And then on patrol, we have 3 that are in actual FTEP, and we had 1 that just went solo recently. So we're making progress. It's the hiring is not got any easier, but we've been able to find some good candidates throughout the processes. So I just want to also just kind of cover, in the last 2 months, we've had 6 eludes. I see it as we are having too many eludes, and not in a bad way. There are agencies outside of and in Oregon that they handle things differently. And so criminals do get used to the process and those kinds of things. And so I think we don't chase for everything. We chase for things that are needing to be caught. But you're going to see that some agencies, as soon as that person takes off, they discontinue their pursuit right there. And so that I think has a detrimental impact on us because criminals think they know how to get out of a pursuit. So we've had 6 of them, which is about our normal over a 2-month average probably. But we've had 2 that were kind of more significant in the last 2 months. We had 2 different instances where deputies got shot at. One where a deputy actually got shot. But those 2 incidents are significant. The level of escalation is there. The force, we've been very cognizant of the force that we're able to use and legally able to use. But it's unfortunate that I think a lot of those people that think they can get out of pursuits or get out of police contact by running and putting other people in danger is not something that we should do, that we shouldn't put up with. We also had a couple different events that we attended. We did National Night Out in August. We went to 3 different events that were happening throughout the county. And we also went to the fair and then delivered all of our proceeds from our Pause with a Cause event. We donated those to multiple different organizations that weren't expecting it. We had more than we normally do. So that's really just a quick and down and dirty update. And I hope you guys have questions I can answer.
Thanks for the report, and our prayers go out to the deputy who was shot. That was shocking news. I know that's part of the job, I suppose, in some ways, but it's still shocking. And I just appreciate all the work your deputies do and the sacrifice they make for us. And just a quick note on the elude issue. I know you have to sort of balance community risk and the importance of apprehending people. And as somebody who lives across the street from the end point of a pursuit, I appreciate it. Even though that person put my neighborhood and family at risk, I'm really grateful that you guys got him because he was a bad character.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate that work and that sacrifice. Just want to mention that. Thank you.
Well, ditto everything that Commissioner Gordon just said. And thank you to all the team members. We know a deputy clearly that needs to buy a lottery ticket. This won't ever happen again.
No.
I guess I'm curious about, and without you giving up strategy, and I know this is a hard question, but I think because of the fact you brought it up that eludes seem to be on the rise and the characteristics of it, I think you've perfectly described where we are as a country. And certainly as a county that is battling the never give up kind of mentality when we're trying to pursue criminals. But at some point, there has to be a line at which you as the commander says, okay, this is where we stop. We're not going to continue. And again, I don't expect you to give up that strategy so that people listening can say, oh, there it is. There's the answer. but I'm hopeful, I'm guessing that on a case by case basis, you or the captain and others in the chain of command know that there is a place where you just say, we can't do it. So I guess that's the affirmation I'm looking for, because it can't possibly be a pursuit at all costs.
No, 100%. You're correct. I mean, we weigh a multitude of factors. The deputy themselves weighs those factors of, how busy it is, how fast they're going. Do they know the suspect that's in the car? All these things that if we know them and they're just putting other people in danger, we terminate pursuits as well. And 2 of those 6 we terminated. We started and then it got too dangerous, and so we stopped. So we're continually looking at the reasons for the pursuit, the reasons to continue, and the reasons to stop all at the same time. And the deputy's doing that, the supervisor's doing that, and then myself or the captain would be doing that as well, depending on the day and time of day and all that kind of stuff. So there are times where it is not safe to continue, but those tend to be a bigger significant case that, the person might have a gun, they might have just done something horrific, that kind of thing that we're not just going to give up on ones that need to be caught.
And I'm adding anecdote here, but from my own experience many years ago, younger experience, it seemed that if we were in a pursuit in law enforcement, that all the agencies anywhere near us and near that pursuit would engage and find ways to help us catch a bad guy. I'm curious about whether or not it seems that's not the case anymore, and that you may have other jurisdictions that will simply say we're not engaging. Is that in fact what's happening? I'm doing this for the benefit of those that are listening and trying to understand what you're up against across the region in law enforcement work.
I really think that, we're all on the same radio system. We're all on the same CAD. So if there's a pursuit that's happening, I'm sure the cities, I know they are. They're paying attention to what direction we're kind of going, and, are we going to end up in their town or not? And so a lot of times they'll be ready to help as soon as we ask them for help. But it's also not good to have, a line of police cars following a suspect. Having just a couple is ideal. But so we don't want extra people involved unless they're blocking streets or throwing spike strips or, whatever that might other job duties. But we all work really well together. The cities tend to, in Polk County, because we don't work with everybody in Marion County, but a lot of the pursuits that start in a city, the cities might terminate before it leaves the city, and then we might actually find it out on the highway or something, and so we might re-engage. So it may not be a continual pursuit, but we got radios that go faster than people. So, but for Polk County, we all work together really well.
Thank you.
A couple of follow-ups. In terms of DPSST training, I know they tried to increase capacity there last session. Are you feeling that at all from your standpoint, or
not yet? It just started.
Just started, so we might see that maybe next year at added capacity. We'll see.
We'll
be
see.
determined.
Yeah, they increased the class sizes from 40 to 60, and then also broke it up into some evening classes too. So there's not 60 kids. It's not 60 students in one class. They're broke up into different, so they're always moving. But that just started maybe last month.
Okay.
So we won't see the effects of that. The other thing OSP did, OSP pulled all their people that they had slotted to go to multiple different academies and are running an OSP only academy, which that's alleviating and opening spots as well. So they're taking one on the chin for everyone else because they're putting themselves out there and staff time and all that. So, which is appreciative because they are a good partner.
So I think I'm hearing you say that the backlog, the log jam that we experienced 2-3 years ago is not gone, but is much better than it was. at DPSST?
Yeah, that's what everything looks like from based on getting 60 students in instead of 40. Just to be able to get through that backlog.
Okay, so we're seeing results faster now than we were. Okay.
It's still
working its
early.
way that
It's
way.
Still early.
So,
Do you have, and I don't need to see it right away, but I'm curious about whether or not you look at a 12-month for the jail stats, for example, a 12-month graph for the highs and lows and what's happening. Do you think that these numbers for average daily population and length of stay are fairly average?
Yeah.
For the year? Okay.
Yeah.
Not necessarily. I mean, I've heard you talk about in the past that summertime tends to be higher. Is that still a norm? I mean, we're still kind of in that era, or
We've really kind of just been at that low hundreds for quite a while. It'll go up a little bit, but for the most part, it's staying pretty even. I think with the courts and everybody's finally, not talking about COVID anymore, but everybody's starting to run at full speed. And so that is the courts and the criminal justice system is moving people and holding people more accountable. So they're not getting released from jail and get picked up. They're either staying in jail, or they're ones that when they get released, they will show up for court. They will finish their process. And so that Senate Bill 48, I think, has helped reel that into where it's a consistent number, just based on how people get released from jail based on the state statute.
and then finally, I would ask you for your thoughts. This is way out here in right field. Sorry, your thoughts on if Measure 110 went away today, what that would do to your jail operations.
I think initially you would see a bigger increase. But then again, Senate Bill 48 starts kicking those certain people out based on their crime levels and all different criteria. So it has a lot to do with that. I think we'd see an initial bump, but I think it would level out.
Okay. Thank you.
I might have a follow-up question on that, but I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Mordhorst.
Thank you. So Sheriff Garden, thank you for the job you do. And I just wanted to let everyone know that yesterday at the Association of Oregon Counties public safety meeting, we discussed the recall or reform of Measure 110 and what it would entail. And that's going to be the focus of the counties going forward for this next session, the short session, and also possibly into the long session. But I brought up the point that the recalling of Measure 110 is just the first step. The next is placing the tools back in the police officers' pockets so they can do their job effectively and put a dent in the free roaming of drugs into our state. That was accepted 100% as well. Everybody agreed. So, and I know you're at that meeting, so could you kind of share a little bit of what that might mean going forward if we're able to get tools, and which tools that should be the first that you need to be reinstated?
I think just the ability to charge crimes for something that we currently can't charge for crimes would be the first step. That would really just give the tools back. I mean, that's really what we would need. Because if it's not a crime, then that tells us that we can only do these X, Y, and Z. But if there is a crime involved, we can do X, Y, and Z, and then we can do these extra few things as well. So I really think that would be the key to it.
So Class C violations, as they currently are, don't give you the power, say, to have reasonable cause to search somebody if you see somebody ingesting drugs or something.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it just depends on what the rules are and what,
Yeah.
our ball game that we can play in. So
Well, thanks so much. Any other questions for the sheriff? Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Give our thanks to the crew. All right. Next up is Polk County's Total Maximum Daily Load Implementation Plan, TMDL. How are you doing, Sydney? Wondering if Austin was going to join you. He's left you alone up here.
It's all right. So for the record, I'm Sydney Mulder, I'm the planning manager for Polk County's Community Development Department. And I'm here this morning to update the board on Polk County's total maximum daily load stormwater permit, which is more commonly referred to as TMDL. So the TMDL permit is one of Polk County's stormwater permits that's issued by DEQ. This permit's required because the Willamette Basin does not meet water quality standards for temperature, mercury, and bacteria. In the year 2021, DEQ issued new permit requirements specifically for mercury, which required us to update our implementation plan. So we worked through that process in 2021, 2022, submitted it to DEQ, and it was approved by DEQ in November of 2022. In August of 2022, additional revisions were submitted to DEQ just as part of our normal 5-year permit renew cycle or review cycle. And the 2023 implementation plan is detailed in the board's memo, and that was approved by DEQ in June of this last year. So staff recommends that the board approve this plan, which has already been reviewed by DEQ, but I'd be happy to answer any other questions that the board has.
So one of the new factors here is the mercury element.
It's always been, mercury's been the one of the pollutants that
Okay.
we've had to address, but there's a specific permit requirement for mercury that kind of breaks out the requirements separately.
Okay.
So historically, we've had what we call a planning matrix, which includes different BMPs to address each pollutant. And so it would have like what the pollutant is, who's responsible for the BMP, timelines, funding, things like that. And so with the new mercury TMDL, it was much more specific. So for example, we'd have to have it organized through BMPs for public education and outreach. And then so we would list those, and then BMPs for enforcement. So it was just structured a lot differently than historically. So we broke that out separately in this revision to show how we met all the permit requirements.
Do you mind breaking out the BMP acronym for folks?
Oh yeah, sorry, best management practices.
Is that a considerable addition of work for you in your office?
No, not really. I think that the biggest difference is really just coming up with ways to track what we've already been doing.
Mm.
So a lot of the BMPs for mercury are really in public works. So I worked directly with a lot of the public works staff during this update to just kind of figure out their process and figure out, well, what are you guys already doing? And then if we can make some simple modifications to just better track it and better document it to submit it in our annual reports to DEQ. I think that was the big change is, so I wouldn't say it was a whole lot more work. It was just kind of documenting what they're already doing and understanding what they're already doing.
Okay, thank you.
What's the impact to the public from these changes?
Directly, not a lot, because most of the BMPs are just things that Public Works is doing, as I said. So it could be culvert replacements and showing how we're already doing soil erosion protection. So that I can't think of those specific examples of how they would directly impact the public.
A reporting change than it is a substantive change.
Yes. I mean, there's some things for the public where we engage in more public participation. Like we try to advertise our Adopt a Road program and get more public involved. We do more outreach on our website, things like that. So there's things that involve the public, but I don't know about like directly impact.
For developers, for example, I mean, there won't be any significant change in stormwater permitting
Not for
under
this
this
one.
update for developers, for example.
Not for this one. That's more of our MS4 permit. So that's the other stormwater permit through the county, and that has more direct impacts on specific development projects, but only in the Salem urban growth boundary.
Okay.
So,
I think it's important to always ask that question when we're talking about updates to rules and
yeah, absolutely.
laws that go through the state and federal government, that what's the impact to the public, what's it cost them?
Yeah.
Besides it costing their government more money, and we take care of that in their taxes. What are the true impacts? And a lot of this might just be updates,
Mhm.
learning, but yeah, are there more regulatory teeth in this process than I have to imagine there are?
There are, yeah, so there's more regulatory teeth with the enforcement component. So we had to go through the exercise of making sure that our existing ordinances meet all the minimum requirements of the TMDL permit requirements. And so it was a lot of just kind of cross-referencing to make sure that it lists the pollutants that DEQ wants us to list as pollutants that we can enforce on. And so we determined that our existing ordinance was sufficient for the TMDL. So I would categorize TMDL as mostly best management practices that county staff is implementing, such as just public works operations and pollution control as part of their road maintenance requirements, versus the MS4 permit. That's the one that has more direct regulatory requirements for developers and property owners. So.
And how long has Polk County been named as a designated management area agency? Sorry.
For MS4 since 2006 and TMDL same.
I think it's 1 year after that, or 04 for MS4, 04 and 06.
Okay.
And so I'm bringing that up because that's in the background and for the record, so folks might be following along, understand that this authority in your background describes that it does not include the cities of Salem, Dallas, Monmouth, Independence, Falls City, Willamina, or the tribes.
Correct.
Right. So they all have a responsibility as a designated management agency as well, correct?
Some of them, maybe not all of them. So the permit requirements have a number of triggers for what qualifies you for each permit. And I think it's based on population is one of the factors. I'm not sure if there's other factors. So I know Dallas has a TMDL, but I don't think they have an MS4. So yeah, there's different triggers for different cities.
This is a permit, so we're required to get a permit and pay for that permit. And then we have to show, like a property owner does, how we comply with all the requirements that the permit is essentially ensuring that we're meeting. And so we've had to write a plan as part of this permit for TMDL since 06.
Just trying to contemplate what the questions would be from anybody in the public that's following this meeting. And,
Yeah.
should they be afraid, or does this seem like government as usual? I say the latter.
This comes from EPA, to DEQ, and then from DEQ, they have to require a permit. EPA requires them to, and then we have to apply for that permit.
And towards that end, the public benefit, as stated, would be to keep our groundwater and river systems as free from these contaminants as possible.
It's trying to minimize that, that maximum daily load for each type of pollutant. And the TMDL is particularly non-point source pollution is sort of what we're trying to tackle with that, rather than point source pollution, which the TMDL or the MS4 permit really gets into that point source pollution.
Okay, so this is first reading, yes?
Well, that's tomorrow. That's
That's-
MS4.
Sorry.
The MS4 stormwater
Yes.
ordinance. Okay. So today we have before us the question whether to approve the TMDL implementation plan, correct? Okay. I'd entertain a motion towards that end.
I will so move.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the TMDL implementation plan as presented. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you so much for your work on this, Sydney. I know it's not a small task. Okay. Next up, we have the 23-24 Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance member contributions. Just a reminder, this is a yearly membership contribution for the collaboration in Marion and Polk counties. There are multiple members on the ORS 190 board. Polk County is one of them. I think that 190 was formed in 2019. There's been no proposed increase this year. Budget levels are the same. The organization has hired an executive director, and she and the consultant are going to work on budget projections for next year. But this is the standard contribution from Polk County. There was an increase, I want to say 2 years ago, to get the county up to
I think we went from 6,000 to
6
8,000.
to 8 to get us in line with the rest of the formula. Yeah,
And other cities pay contributions also.
that's right. Everyone, it's a requirement in the bylaws. If you have a vote on the ORS 190 to be a contributing member, the ORS 190 is authorized to set its rates. Yeah. But there is, let's see. Yeah, so this is obviously just like other membership organizations, one of the recurring revenues. The Alliance has several other sources for that in the Continuum of Care Planning Grant, the HUD HMIS grant, and there's a 1% assessment from the COC de Novo, the regular grant we get every year, and the why it should be the Youth Homeless Demonstration Program. So lots of changes at the Alliance. Obviously, one is the major one is that we went from about a $1 million budget to about an $11 million budget. So there have been some growing pains there, but admin contracts with the COG helped out, and of course with the county for some of the fiscal services of the 5019 money that came through. Greg, you're actually listed on this item, so what you got?
Oh, I get the invoices. They always
Okay.
tend to send them to me, or I get them. I've done this with COG. I've done it with AOC. We just bring these up periodically and just put it on the agenda just for making sure you guys want to pay it. I know it's a contribution that we have made in the past, and I assume we will make in the future, but I just bring them up.
Commissioner Mortis.
Thank you, Chair. So I know as part of this setting this up, and I know in the minutes or in the bylaws that's got a sunset as far as dues paying to where the point where it becomes self-sufficient and operate off of the amount of money that we would gain from the federal grants. Has that been discussed? Is there a date or a year in the future to where we won't be paying dues? It'll operate off the money that we gained from grants?
I think that's possible in the future, perhaps. It depends on a lot of things. Because the bulk of it's essentially a federal organization, but the bulk of the funding currently is state. So that's really going to determine a lot of the administrative need. But I'm not aware of any, and I didn't see any sunset provisions for membership dues in the bylaws. And I did ask a couple other members, and they're not aware of that. So I wasn't involved during those conversations back then, Lyle, but they did not make it in the bylaws as far as I'm aware. I could have missed it though. Go ahead, Lyle. Your hand's still up if you.
Oh, sorry. I'll take it back down. I think that's just one of those topics we probably should be bringing up for the future. I know a lot of the other COCs are self-sufficient from percentages of the grants. I think that's a great plan that we should take a look at.
I looked at Lane County. Lane County's COC is embedded in their Health and Human Services Department at the county. It's a single county COC, and there's some, grant administration that's self-funded through admin fees through the federal grants. But they have some sustaining admin support at the county, and that certainly is an option too. I know Marion County has discussed that in the past, offering some admin support there. I think the board has basically unanimously expressed the need to sort of reevaluate the structure of the alliance, particularly the committee structure, some of which are required under HUD requirements, some of which are more, a result of the original conception of the alliance. So Elaine Lozier, the executive director, who I think we should invite here once she's had a bit more time at the alliance to provide an update. We're gonna not only refresh the strategic plan of the alliance, but also kind of look at the internal structure of it to see where we can find efficiencies. It's a fairly complex structure. I think committee work is good. It does encourage a lot of participation from the community, which is great. But each committee requires staff support. So that is definitely a big goal of the alliance is to look at how we're going to structure ourselves going forward. If there are changes, there certainly are some desires to do so. But again, right now is not the time because we just got the NOFO done and the EO work is still very much front and center. And again, we want to give Elaine a little time to do an evaluation of the organization herself because she's been kind of charged. She'll be charged. She's also the board administrator, will be charged with budgets in the future and, presenting the budget, preparing the budget, and is also in charge of any consultant staffing structures. So I think this conversation will be ongoing, but this year probably won't be the time for that to reevaluate the membership contributions.
Sounds good. And I would like to just point out that the change that creating this COC is made for Marion and Polk County with the amount of funding we were able to receive breaking away years ago is really starting to pay dividends. So it will be a valuable asset in the future.
I agree, Lyle. And you were had such a big hand in standing this up and the structure. And I think one of the most exciting programs I'm excited about is the Youth Homeless Demonstration Program. Polk County will stand up its first, not the county, but community action through funding of the Homeless Alliance will stand up its first youth homeless facility in Monmouth. And then through a partnership between Community Action and Polk CDC, there will be regular apartments dedicated to young adults who age out of the foster system. And there will be supports, education, GED, job supports, and other supports for those young adults. So I think that's been a big need in our county for a while. And, that alone gets me excited. But yes, there's been prevention funds that have come through the Alliance, rapid rehousing funds, of course, sheltering funds. That's a big question mark whether that will go through. That'll be a local jurisdictional decision. But I'm also hearing that there's a lot of interest at the legislature for learning more about prevention. I think the focus has been on chronically homeless folks, which, nobody benefits from people living on the street, but we need to really zero in on strategies for prevention. And I think we'll be at the forefront of those conversations at the legislature. So are we ready to approve the dues or consider it?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the dues, but moving forward, I would like to see some discussion on having the COC become self-sufficient and working within the grant money that they get for their operating.
And when we get to those conversations at the Alliance, both structure and funding for staff, I will update the board. I'll second it. Hearing silence. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to have more accountability with this invoice in the future. I haven't seen the actual operating, analysis. So I don't know who pays dues. I don't know where the money goes. I don't know how long this is going to keep going. My understanding was, again, these were going to be startup dollars. So I'm challenging it right now in that, how long is this going to keep going? So, and I don't need the answer from you. I need it from somebody that you pay to get those answers. So hopefully you're going to have that person ready to answer those questions by early spring. Because we haven't had a presentation on what's going on. And I think that would be appropriate to get that. I hope this $8,000 buys us more than just a vote.
Yeah, just to speak to that a bit, I think we'll probably be ready earlier than spring. I'm hoping for, because we discussed Elaine kind of introducing herself to the various governing bodies that make up the Homeless Alliance. Again, the ORS 190 is made up of all the governments involved. So that's Marion County, Polk County, Monmouth Independence, Salem Kaiser School District, Kaiser, Salem.
Dallas.
No, Dallas is not. But I would like to we're also talking about bringing in more members. That requires an adjustment to the agreement with the Secretary of State who oversees ORS 190s. So ORS 190s are basically, how would you define it?
Quasi-governmental entity.
That the Secretary of State kind of oversees, I guess. And I would also love to bring in another Marion County non-Salem community to that voting body. So Elaine will be making the rounds so we can ask more questions there. But in addition to a vote, we bring tremendous programmatic funding to our community. This board approved a contract with the Alliance in the amount of $481,000 for rapid rehousing funds. Sable House, not affiliated with the county directly, but they serve our constituents, received $410,000 to serve victims of domestic violence. Received another $1 million that will be employed in Polk County. That was contracted with the Community Action Agency, but that's $1 million in prevention funds that FCO is helping to administer. I mentioned the Youth Homeless Demonstration Project. That's a 2-year grant. That's $3.7 million to Marion and Polk, some of which will fund the youth program. And there's more. Salem Housing Authority also received some funds to serve Polk and Marion. So in terms of allotments of money served and programs served through the Alliance, Polk County has come up very, very well. And we're seeing results every day. We heard from FCO about the rehousing prevention funds that we're serving 8 to 10 households a month, either keeping them in housing or rapidly connecting them to housing. It's all part of the plan. Paths, the 4123 funds that we received, and that collaborative for rural Polk County we're finding ways to integrate that work into the Alliance so that we're sharing data, sharing process, and ultimately sharing funding to make sure it's distributed to rural spaces as well. So in terms of some of the goals of the county that have been discussed in terms of prevention funds, rural attention, and also provider engagement, providers who are funded to serve Polk who haven't as much in the past, I think, that's all been improving. So I think the $8,000 a year is well spent. That's my opinion. All right, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor to approve the membership contribution of $8,000, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay.
Abstain.
Abstain for Commissioner Pope. And I'll schedule that hopefully before spring. But she's going to need to make the rounds to all the organizations. So we'll get that on the books. All right. Any non-listed items today?